cost to put into the deck.
Exactly. It's one slot, and the impact is very high.
Griffin playing Esper Dragons as well. Both these players sitting at 7-1. Pardon me. Here's a foul towing invocation. Looks like that's taking care of Sidisi. This is game number 1 that we are in.
Yeah, it's a slog, and Griffin is low, but it looks like he is stabilizing the game.
Or at least getting close.
Got a lot of cards in hand compared to Ross. And this is the kind of matchup where things are generally going to be solid for the Esper deck game 1. There's just only so much stuff in Ross's deck that matters, and all of it's expensive. So Griffin can sit back, take some lumps, draw some cards, dissolve the critical pieces, sweep everything up, and then go from there, at least in an ideal world. Things can get complicated if Ross is able to slip a whip of Erebos into play. If Griffin can't answer it, that means every threat's really problematic because countering doesn't do enough.
There's Morph. There's a Dissolve. Got a feeling that Morph was Den Protector. Yeah. So here's Scry for Lussier. Leave that card on top pretty quickly. See if Merriam has a follow-up.
And Ross is also going to get jammed up with some spot removal game 1, and that's part of the problem here. 4 copies of Murderous Cut and 3 Heroes Downfall on his list. Not good against Griffin game 1. And that's part of the problem for Ross in the matchup is once the game gets dragged out, all those dead draws are really problematic. And I believe he has at least 1 downfall in his hand right now.
Lussier will draw. Remember, he kept his top card on top. It's got to be Bioblade. There's a Temple. That top card stays on top very quickly here for Griffin. He'll pass the turn back. Pretty good hand there. Dig through time, anticipate. Looks like Slumgar scorned as well. No dragon just yet, though. Opulent Palace there from him, just a passing of the turn. There is anticipate. Dragon Lord Ochitai, Dissolve, and a Crux of Fate. Looks like the Dragon Lord will be the selection. Tough passing up on Dissolve there, though.
I think so, too, especially because Ross is likely to be sitting on a bunch of removal spells, and unless Griffin's hand is so good that he doesn't care about it, I think I prefer just to take Dissolve, and if anything, you can just deck Ross in this kind of matchup. He's probably milled himself over quite a bit with Wayfinders and such, and it's hard for him to win at this point, given how few threats are really left in his deck that matter.
This is a dig through time. Lussier going to take a look at 7 cards, take 2 with him.
I think that Griffin's just getting a boatload of counter spells right now, though. So,
setting up shop.
Very good chance he has the resources to push through Dragon Lord Ochitai through whatever removal spells Ross is holding, and also leave himself with just a lot of removal spells and other counters left over in case Ross draws something impactful.
Well, Dig is done resolving. Anticipate resolve before that. So we'll go back Lussier's way now. Dragon Lord Ochitai the draw for the turn. So it doesn't even care that much if the first one dies. There is the Dragon Lord. Head back Merriam's way. Ross will untap that Opulent Palace. He'll take a draw. Does have a Hero's Downfall in hand, as you mentioned. There's a Temple of Malady. Take a look at that top card. It'll stay on top. Pass the turn back. Here comes the Dragon Lord. There's an attempted Hero's Downfall. We'll see if this resolves. Looks like Slumgar Scorn is going to try to protect. Does Ross have another Hero's Downfall? Perhaps even a Murderous Cut. The answer is no. So Dragon Lord connects. Anticipate's going to go to the Grip after resolving the Dragon Lord's ability. And Lussier does have a full hand, 7 cards right now.
Yep.
Swamp and Murderous Cut here from Merriam.
And this is probably the point, if I'm Griffin, where I stop fighting over something like this, just let this resolve and follow up with your second Dragon Lord Ochitai.
There may be more important stuff to counter down the road.
If he's sensing weakness, then I guess he can just kind of try to bully Ross out of the game right now and let Dragon Lord do its thing. But Griffin is expending a lot of resources trying to protect this one Dragon Lord Ojutai when he has another one in hand. And these counter spells are very precious.
There's Sidisi. There's Ultimate Price with the exploit trigger on the stack, so there will be no exploiting taking place here. And perhaps that's what Ross was trying to set up, was to resolve Sidisi, exploit itself, get Whip of Erebos, go from there. And even that's off the table now. And now Dragon Lord Ojutai is going to look to take over. Doesn't take a lot of hits from this thing.
No. 4, actually. Yeah. Typically the number.
You can count them.
Yeah.
Let's see what else Lussier has up his sleeve. Slumgar, the Drifting Death. The Hexproof Dragon. Pass the turn back. Merriam will draw. It's a Sidisi, Brood Tyrant. There's Trigger on the stack. Kind of cast Foul Tongue Invocation. So that no zombie gets in the way. Pick up a little information thanks to the mill. Included Delta, Whip of Erebos, Opulent Palace. Lussier will untap. Life total up to 8 now. Time to draw. Copy Hero's Downfall. Just putting the finishing touches on this game.
Yep, got it all locked up.
Slumgar Scorn is the card found. Griffin will show that, saying you're on a no-outer, and Ross will concede the game. So Griffin Lussier will win game number 1 here over Ross Merriam. Esper Dragons up a game over Sultai Reanimator. About 27 minutes left to go for Ross to try to steal this one. We'll take a look at his sideboard first. You'll find 3 Disdainful Stroke, a Treasure Cruise, a Thoughtseize, 2 Ultimate Price, 2 Drowning Sorrow, a Doomwake Giant, a Soul of Innistrad, a Reclamation Sage, a Hornet Queen, Freaky God Affliction, and Merciless Executioner. A lot of good options.
Yeah, time to get grinding for Ross here. The Soul of Innistrad, I think, plays into that pretty well. To me, the big things are the first couple cards on that list, the 3 copies of Disdainful Stroke, the Treasure Cruise, and the Thoughtseize. Thoughtseize seems like Ross's most important card in the matchup. Treasure Cruise, very helpful in a game that goes on long. And the 3 copies of Disdainful Stroke can keep Griffin off of his big plays, the dragons, the dig through times, and so forth. So I think those are where Ross is going to go here.
What do we see on the other side here for Griffin?
A Pearl Lake Agent, 2 copies of Dragon Lord's Prerogative, a Foul Tongue Invocation, 4 copies, of Surge of Righteousness, 2 Duress, 2 Tassiger, 1 Bile Blight, 1 Negate, 1 Ultimate Price. I like bringing in the Bile Blight in this matchup. Ross has a lot of high quality 3-times or less creatures, most notably Sidisi. I think the 1 Negate is reasonable in this matchup. Ross is most likely bringing in more spells. The spells he has game 1 are quite powerful. I also like the 2 copies of Dragon Lord's Prerogative in this matchup a lot because it's just going to go on for a long time. And the card drawing for Griffin, I think, is just very good in this kind of matchup.
I don't have anything short about these games.
No.
Even with Ross's best draws where he's able to close the game pretty quickly, it's only going to take about 8 or 9 turns.
Exactly. And so Dragon Lord's Prerogative is, I think, does get a chance to shine in this sort of game. He's got 1 in the main deck, 2 more on the sideboard. I think he should go up to 3 copies.
Okay. We'll see how both players do sideboard and get ready to go. We'll very quickly talk about our Bile. Should see both players shuffling very quickly. It's fixed, for lack of a better term. We know that there were some problems with it before. It's all changed. It's all pretty shiny and new.
It is so smooth to use right now. If you have an account registered with the website, you can go to starcgames.com/Bile. Check it out for yourself. But instead of having just this long laundry list of individual cards that we're buying, you can actually just punch in your cards into the search engine. You can modify by condition, by foil, not foil, see what we're paying for them. Also, you can generate your buy list ahead of time, so you mail your entire order over to Star City Games. You get a turnaround that's quite a bit faster because it's already printed out. If you head over to our dealer booth at one of our Opens or Grand Prix, you can just walk up to the dealer with your buy list and your cards, save yourself a lot of time. So much easier to use, and it expedites your process in a number of ways. Again, you need to be registered for the website to check it out, but if you are, you know, over starcitygames.com/buy list, check it out right now. And if you're not registered, it's very easy to do so.
So do it.
Just do it.
StarCityGames.com/buy-list for more information. As game number 2 is about to be underway, both players taking a look at their opening hands. Merriam will be on the play, and it looks like he's going to mulligan very quickly here. Number 6 on our Season 2 leaderboard. Looks as though he's run into a pretty difficult matchup. These are the kind of decks that I think Esper Dragons wants to play against.
A slow deck without that much juice in it is kind of what Esper Dragons is looking for. Your counter spells, your dissolves, your Slumgar Scorns, they're very effective tools. at breaking up Sultai Reanimators, couple cards that matter, and as long as you can handle Whip of Erebos, then you can handle all the threats on kind of a one-for-one basis. And the deck just has a lot of, there's Caryatids, there's Wayfinders, there's removal spells. There's a lot of dead or close to dead draws in the deck. Cards that are predicated on other cards showing up. So a couple well-timed discards cards or counter spells can be very effective against decks like this.
Ross has found 6 he's happy enough with. He'll play a Satyr Wayfinder, turn over a couple of cards here. A Temple of Malady, a Llanowar Waste, a Forest, and a Sidisi. He'll take the Llanowar Waste. Pass that turn back over to Lussier. Lussier started his game off the Temple to dissolve the draw. That's a Flooded Strand and a passing of the turn back Merriam's way. He'll attack for 1. Will Ross attempt a Courser? We'll see if this runs into a card like Slumgar Scorn. It's good. Thoughtseize top card of the deck. That's an important one to know about.
That's one of Ross's best tools here for being able to push something big through. Either Whip of Erebos, some large threat, and be able to win the game that way.
Island there with the fetch land. Ultimate Price will take care of the Courser. Thoughtseize will be the draw for Merriam on his next turn, but we're going to head back Lussier's way here in just a moment.
Good old Mercadia Masks.
That's not a bad island. Not my favorite, but not a bad island.
Griffin is all about the Mercadia Masks foils.
There's a swamp. Pass that turn. Ross going to very quickly draw that Thoughtseize stack for 1. Ross, you can see, he's a lot more methodical when he plays, but he knows the time is of the essence now.
Yeah. He doesn't want to take a draw here. Neither player does.
Yeah.
And 22 minutes is no guarantee of being able to get even through game 2, much less games 2 and 3.
Here's Courser. That'll get dissolved. Scry here will Lussier. Top card becomes the bottom card. Does Ross have a land to play? Looks like everything's okay. You saw Griffin kind of set his deck down in an awkward way on accident.
Yeah. Some cards got jarred, but I don't think it's a big deal here.
Yeah. Looks like everything should be okay, but that's why we have a spotter. Make sure everything's okay.
As opposed to our era, when this would have just been just a game loss.
Get out.
Get out of our
Just
tournament.
leave. And never come back. Gotta make sure that all the cards are where they're supposed to be. Maybe some may have gotten knocked over, and it looks like that may actually be the case.
So I think Ross is likely to be missing his land drop here if he played Courser in lieu of Thoughtseizing.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it feels like, right?
Yeah. Most likely Ross is about to miss a land drop.
We will come back to us really quickly here. No reason for you guys to sit there and just stare at the judge counting a deck. That's pretty boring stuff.
Yeah, and not even I can make that entertaining. We gotta come back here.
You can look at us, our smiling faces. Keep in mind, after this match is over, we have the conclusion of our top 8 cards.
Yep.
You could probably guess his and mine, actually. I think they're pretty easy
I think
to
that you can narrow down my range to probably a half dozen or so cards.
Yeah, I think so. I figured it out. He figured mine out.
Yeah.
We know
yours
already.
is very obvious.
If you don't know mine, you don't know me.
Right.
You know, it's a joke. It's very simple. But I know that most people were surprised by number 2 on the list. Polar Kraken for me and
Volca Van Hava.
It doesn't roll off the tongue very well. So, you know what's going to happen now. People are going to have you sign those.
I hope so.
Volca Van Havas.
Listen, I think there's a good chance there's probably a backlog of Homelands cards in the Star City inventory. So if we can start turning that over a little bit.
See, it's all for a greater picture.
Annaba Tower, Ishan's Shade, the Cycle of Lands, Wizard School, and
You
company.
know this many cards from that set?
I bought a lot of Homelands boosters. That's actually surprising that I'm still involved in Magic because I purchased a lot of Homelands boosters.
Is that what the Homerids were in?
No, that's Fallen Empires.
Thank you.
That's actually a set with some gas in it. I mean, Hymn to Torak.
Homelands?
No, Fallen Empires.
Fallen Empires, sorry.
Homelands is a disaster.
Okay.
Merchant Scroll, Serrated Arrows. I mean, one of the marquee cards of the set was Autumn Willow, which you would not play in a draft deck in Modern Magic. And it was a legend. And that was like, oh my god, did you see that thing? 4/4 untargetable for 6?
Isn't all damage dealt to just a 0 or something?
No, it's untargetable, and you can pay a green to allow just you to target it this turn.
That's busted.
Actually, a sweet design.
Busted. Here's Thoughtseize.
Thoughtseize is busted.
Anticipate, Disdainful Stroke, Dragon Lord Ochitai, a Plains, and a Temple of Enlightenment.
What are you supposed to do about your Autumn Willow in an era where everyone played Moat and Mana Drain?
There's no answer. Here's Anticipate from Griffin.
I don't know what you're supposed to do about that thing.
It's a 4/4.
Yep. I guess I'll Mana Drain Brain Geyser. Okay, your turn. Or whatever.
Yeah, anything can happen.
Anyone's game still.
Bioblade the draw. And for those of you guys wondering at home exactly what the ruling was there, they reassembled the deck as some of the cards fell, but they kept the scry on the bottom because that's what had happened, so able to shuffle the deck and keep everything the way it's supposed to be, to the best of their ability. Here is Sidisi. Trigger on the stack of Bioblight, so that means even if Ross has turned over a creature here, which he turned over a couple, and Den Protector and Sidisi Undead Vizier, no zombie coming. Important card to keep in mind that he also turned over there was a copy of Treasure Cruise. Speaking of delve card drawing spells, here's Dig Through Time.
You're seeing some of the problems that Ross has in the matchup here. At the end of the day, in this matchup, he just has a curve of slow creatures.
Yes.
That's not how you want to attack a control deck. His angles of attack involve getting Whip of Erebos into play, which is good if it resolves, but is problematic to get into play, or using discard and counter spells to push through threats or prevent Griffin from being able to answer them. But these Esper Dragon decks are able to perform against things like Jeskai Aggro, which is essentially doing the same game plan, and that's the core focus. For Ross, he's just trying to do his best to convert into a deck that can do things like that, but that's not his natural game plan.
There's Temple. Take a look at that top card. Gonna stay on top. Now Griffin's gonna play Dragon Lord Ochitai. Ross will draw. It's a copy of Disdainful Stroke. Looks like it might be a little late to this party.
This feels like Whip of Erebos or bust. If Ross has Whip of Erebos this turn, he can keep playing. And if he doesn't, even if it's something good like Sidisi, it's probably not going to be enough.
Well, it's something good like Sidisi.
Yeah, this is good, but probably is not going to be enough.
It's got to bring a zombie with it, I think, and it does at least. Thoughtseize, Disdainful Stroke, and Courser are the cards that are turned over, so at least it's bringing a zombie with it, which is important.
I mean, Ross's life total is in danger too. Setting aside what's happening on the board, he's just had a lot of Mana Confluence, Land of War Waste, Thoughtseize type of damage. And Griffin might be able to close this out very quickly with Dragon Lord Ochitai.
The Boz just took care of another victim.
Another victim.
Yeah. He's 9-0. He's on top of the standings after day one. Congratulations to him. He beat Brian Dole in the last round. Dole, of course, our teamer aggro player that we saw last round, actually give Griffin his loss. So, Boswell with Ops on aggro, on top of the standings. One thing to keep in mind in this particular game that we're watching, for Griffin, he's going to cast Crux of Fate, kill all of Ross's stuff, and leave his Dragon Lord Ochitai on the table.
Combo deck.
But for Griffin, we saw last game where Ross had leftover Heroes Downfalls and Murderous Cuts. It feels like it's so unlikely for that to happen after a sideboarding game because he just wants to board those cards out in this matchup. Feels like he's left in some number of Heroes Downfalls.
Yeah, and that was really important for him to have there because Griffin took an opportunity there to cast the Crux of Fate, leave the shields down on Dissolve because he had Disdainful Stroke to catch a big follow-up. And Ross would basically have to have exactly Heroes Downfall in that spot. It's not even the end of the world for Griffin to have it, if Ross does have it there, because he's got to anticipate Dissolve. He's got tools to work left over with, but it basically had to be Heroes Downfall from Ross that turn. And it's not even clear how many copies of that card is left in his deck.
Yeah. Anticipate here for Lussier.
But I think between the two Dragon Lords, Ochitai and Slumgar, which you can anticipate coming in a matchup like this, makes sense to leave in the Heroes Downfalls.
You might want to leave in one or two.
At least.
Something like that. You also don't know if your opponent has Ashiok, which if your opponent has Ashiok and you don't have Heroes Downfall,
Game over.
You're like dead
Yeah.
immediately. So you have to hedge your bets at least a little bit. Slumgar scoring the draw. A lot of counter magic over there for Lussier. He's putting the big fella down now. Hexproof is very powerful there. And with Ross at 6, it only takes 2 hits now. Merriam will draw. Looks like he's going to play a Seder Wayfinder. Search up some lands, or at least try to. Opulent Palace, Temple of Malady, Yavimaya Coast, Land of War Wastes. He can choose anyone he wants. He'll take the Temple, Trigger, Scry, Top card. It's the bottom card now. Pass that turn back. But Ross unable to put together a lot on that particular turn. And at this point, if you're Griffin, you can play with your hand face up.
Yeah, dissolve other counter spells as well.
Yeah. There is no way out here for Ross Merriam. He might cast a spell, he might not. We'll see. It's going to be a courser. I think we'll see one counter spell. And that is going to do it. Griffin Lussier is going to win this match over Ross Merriam 2-0. Esper Dragons will clean up Sultai Reanimator. A good matchup there for Griffin to close out his day. He's 8-1.
Yep. Ross converts into more of a normal, just Sultai powerful cards deck post board, but he can't really address very effectively the fact that he's only got so many cards that matter.
Yeah.
Even a lot of his powerful proactive plays, like Sidisi, for example, they just get swept up in Crux of Fate and so forth. It's really Whip of Erebos, the discard spells, and the counter spells that give him a different dimension of attack. He didn't find Whip of Erebos that game. It would have been good for him in a couple spots there. He didn't have it. And the counter spells ended up rotting his hand a little bit because he was missing some land drops there. He was forced to tap out on his own turn and actually lost with Disdainful Stroke in his hand.
Well, congratulations to Griffin Lussier. He is 8-1 coming into day 2 of competition. Ross Merriam will slide down to 7-2, but can still make the top 8 this tournament.
Absolutely. X and 3 is typically good at the